Hi, my name's Joe Keim. I'm with GreyCampus, an instructor and also a course designer. I'm here today with Mauro to discuss some of the changes that have come up recently with the PMP handbook. PMP handbook outlines some new testing changes that we want to talk with you today. So Mauro, how about you introduce yourself?
Hey Joe and everybody, my name is Mauro Zaffalon. I'm also a trainer with GreyCampus and a course advisor. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today, and Joe, good seeing you as well. We want to take the opportunity to discuss some of these important changes that PMI has made to the application process, as well as to the upcoming exam and the supporting material, such as the handbook for the examination and eventually the content of the exam as well. So I think before we touch even on that, Joe, if you wouldn't mind giving a bit of a description about the differences, the upcoming differences in what we're going to have between the current education provider, the REP, that are handling the courses for the PMP examination, as well as providing a lot of the material, and the new ATP, which PMI has designed and will come in effect with the second half of the year.
Okay, so first off, up until now, we've had REPs. These are registered education providers. Now, these reps are the ones who provide the 35 hours of certified training that you take typically through like an institution or an organization like GreyCampus.
That is great. That's great news because it is going to provide a uniform level of expertise amongst trainers like ourselves for the PMP, as well as that we will have to work on PMI design training material. So all of the students are going to receive uniform sets of material they can use to prepare for the PMP examination. So it is going to eliminate some of the variances and frankly some of the poor quality training that has been out there from other places that provide training for students. So this is good news. So in addition to the changes from the REP to the ATP, PMI is also making considerable changes to the exam, the format of the exam. And so as the exam was before divided, the questions were divided into a certain number of domains. Now that is going to change going forward in the future. And they're going to focus their questions differently than what they have been doing so far. Perhaps we can give a quick introduction about what we expect the changes to be in the future and how it would affect students.
Okay, well, first off, the exam is going to test the project manager's knowledge of being a project manager. So this isn't a test for someone who's just taken a boot camp and is just going to jam through it. They've never been a project manager. There's an expectation that you are a project manager, you've been one for 3 or 4 years, that you have experience and knowledge across not just predictive waterfall, but also agile and hybrid. Now, the types of questions they're going to be asking are going to be situational. All right, they're going to be story-based. They're going to put you into a situation and ask you to explain, what do you do next? What's the next logical step? What do you do first? What should the PM do? What's the best answer or the course of action? Or what is the next best course of action that a project manager should take? Now, the way those questions are going to be presented aren't just going to be multiple choice. According to PMI, there's going to be some matching types of questions, but then there's also the potential for video questions. So that constitutes a huge change. Now, another thing they're doing is there's 200 questions on the exam. So what they're going to do is about midway through the exam, they're going to give you the opportunity to take a 10-minute break. That's optional. Once you take that break, you're not going to have access to the questions that you've already answered. All right, so before you take the break, make sure you look through your questions and you're okay with where they're at. And then they'll let you go on to the next set.
Yeah, that is important. And I should point to the fact that you're specifically referring now to the exam that students can take online from their home, from their place of work, where they are doing it entirely online and where they are given a 10-minute break halfway through the exam. And we know that once you've completed half of the exam and take your break, you won't be able to go back and check those questions that you already answered. But students, I imagine, some of the testing centers are already opening again, and eventually we'll probably go back to the normal universe of testing centers that the student can actually go to and take exams in person, if you will, as instead of doing it on a computer from home. And there, the situation is a little bit different. There's a little bit more flexibility, if you will, right? We can talk briefly. I know a lot of students are familiar already with the testing center, but there is a bit of difference between, again, the proctor exam at home and going to the testing centers.
Yeah, so one of the big differences is when you take a proctored exam at home, what's going to happen is you're going to have to go through this security process where they're going to have you answer some questions and take some pictures of the environment where you're taking your exam. They're going to probably have you pan your camera around so they can make sure that there's no testing materials nearby. So there won't be the ability to write down notes. So, you know, how very often we tell you, take a first few minutes, write down, you know, do a brain dump, write down the process chart, write down your formulas. That's not going to be available to you. What they do is give you a whiteboard, an online whiteboard or blackboard, however it might be. And it allows you, it's like a paint program. And, you know, you have to use a mouse. They will not let you use a pen mouse. So that's just something to be aware of in the testing.
Yeah, I think in a big scheme of things, it may be actually easier to go to the testing center eventually to do the exam. Some of those limitations are not going to be present, but at the same time, you have to travel there. They still put you through security. You're not in the comfort of your own home, and some people find that fairly stressful. So each student will have to choose the best options for them. Okay, so let's talk about what needs to happen before we get to the exam, though. I know that one of the issues that our students have found in the past was the application process itself. That has been a very cumbersome, fairly difficult, and a source of stress for a lot of students. And one of the changes the PMI has made is improving the process immensely. It is much more easier now to apply for the exam. Perhaps we can walk through our students briefly on some of the main points about the new application.
So one of the really cool things about PMI is they did a survey and they found out that their process wasn't very effective and it was creating a lot of stress for students, mostly in accounting for their time, being a project manager in each of the 5 domains of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, as well as closing. Now, rather than doing that by hour, they're setting a 36-month requirement if you have a bachelor's degree, all right? And it just says non-overlapping experience. So you need to describe projects and programs that you have led and what your part or, you know, what your contribution has been in that project or effort.
Yes, I remember in my own experience, thankfully I only had to present a couple of projects, but I had to describe divide my time spent on this project by the process groups, or by the domains, if you will, and assigning a percentage of hours that I worked in projects. That has all gone away now. Now all we have to provide is the amount of months we work on a project and just making sure that they don't overlap. If you're working on 2 projects simultaneously, you can only count 1 month basically for each one of those the time spent. It's going to make it a lot easier. And also the application itself, the dashboard, the interface, if you will, has become much easier. There are only a couple of screens, 4 screens, I believe, that you have to go through. Mostly have drop-down menus. You don't have to type in information other than your experience. And you don't have to provide as much information that you needed to provide before about, for example, the organization you work for. There have been a few additional fields that have been added, like the budget, for example, for the project that you work for, the size of the team, and importantly, the type of project management that you were involved with. Was it hybrid? Was it agile? Or was it traditional predictive type of project management? So I think this is going to be very helpful because, as you mentioned, having to put down the hours for each one of the projects by domain name was very, very confusing for students. And so all of that now has gone away. It's going to be much easier. Okay.
Another nice change that has happened is you no longer have to provide in the application contact information verifying or validating that you were in that role. Okay. Now, if you're audited, you still need to be able to provide that information. So my recommendation is keep a spreadsheet off to the side with and still look for contact information for people that can validate that you were fulfilling that role. Another thing they've done is they have changed the character field where you describe the project from 200 or 550 characters now to 550 words. Okay, so this is where you're going to describe the project, what you did, and in your role. So a potential outline could be a short paragraph about the project, another one that describes your role in the project. What are the things that you did? And look at your delivery schedule. What were the products that you delivered? Did you do it on time? You know, this is okay to say, yeah, we were late, and but this is what we did to address that issue. And then also you want to talk about project outcomes. Again, this is important for people that are looking at your application to discern whether or not you really are a project manager. And that's the purpose of that field.
Yes, and we should mention about the field that there is a minimum of 100 words that you have to provide in order to describe your experience, but not to go over 500. 500 words is a lot of words. It's almost a full page that you can fill to describe your job in a project, and is more than sufficient in this case. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the requirements are, as usual, either 36 months or I think it was either 3 years or 5 years of experience as a project manager, depending on the level of education, formal education that you obtain. Now, because PMI is sort of aligned with the GAC, with the accreditation center, they discount a full 12 months from those requirements if you've studied in a course, a university or college course that is recognized by GAC. And so if before you had to present either 3 or 5 years of experience, now you can only present either 2 years or 4 years of experience. So they're basically giving you a discount. They're doing that across all of the certifications, with the exception of the Agile, where they still have a requirement for Agile experience. But that is also a plus, because now with just the right type of education in an accredited institution, as well as 2 years of professional experience, you can apply for the project management certification, the PMP.
Right, and even though it does allow for just 2 years of experience, if you have that GAC accreditation, you can also apply that GAC accreditation from a educational institution towards the 35-hour training requirement. And that's because the GACs are very closely aligned with PMI.
That is correct. Okay, I think we've covered pretty much the important points here. Again, it is going to be so much easier now to apply for the certification for PMP. That removes the barrier that was stressing a lot of students. It's going to make it much faster. You don't have to spend days and days collecting information. As you mentioned, Joe, it is good to be prepared. Contact your old employers, your old supervisor, your managers, so that they would be willing to vouch for you in case you get audited. But there's no need to provide any of that information beforehand to PMI. It's just useful to have it for your own purposes in case you get audited.
Right. And one other thing.
You want to add anything else?
Well, one other thing we want to encourage students on, GreyCampus has set up a system where you don't have to go this alone. We provided you with a training platform with content, but also you have reach back ability to instructors like Mauro and myself that can work with you and help you be successful. As you go through this process, sometimes the language is going to be new and different. It's not going to match your industry. And so what GreyCampus has allowed is a forum of mentorship and help and support to help you be successful. So with that, we wish you the very best of luck, and we look forward to seeing you in class.
Same for me. I look forward to see you, and best of luck in your journey.